Hi and Assalamualaikum. In this video, we will highlight about Freddie Mac accounting scandal. First of all, let me show you the video about Freddie Mac accounting scandal.
Even though we've all heard of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, there's still some confusion just as to what they do and where things went wrong. So here's the breakdown. Basically, Fannie and Freddie make credit available for people's home mortgages. They do this by buying mortgages from banks and then repackaging them to sell them to people who want to buy homes. Fannie and Freddie guarantee these loans for a fee, which is how they make their money. Now, originally, Fannie and Freddie were the most powerful in the home mortgage world, and so they could be pretty selective about who they would lend to. Let's take Mr. Shu here, for example. He has a lot of money in the bank, he can afford a large down payment on a home, he has a good credit score, and so it seems pretty safe to assume that he'll pay back the loan. Fannie and Freddie will probably lend him some money. But what about all those regular Joes out there who don't have a great credit score, who don't have a lot of money for a large down payment, and who aren't exactly considered safe? Well, around 2003, Wall Street started buying up these riskier loans. With that, more and more regular Joes were being put into expensive homes that they couldn't really afford, and to keep up with the competition, housing prices just kept going up. And with all of the competition, Fannie and Freddie were starting to lose their position as number one. So what did they do? They started buying the riskier loans too. Their timing could not have been worse. They got into the game just before housing prices dropped dramatically in 2006 and people were no longer buying real estate. And so, in 2008, the government stepped in and started helping out. Oh, and so did you. So far, Freddie has received over $72 billion from the Treasury, while Fannie has received a whopping $112 billion. So, what are your thoughts on the bailout?
Okay, I will talk a little bit about the company background of the Freddie Mac. Freddie Mac, originally known as the Federal Home Loan Mortgage Corporation. Freddie Mac was chartered by Congress in 1970 as a private company with a public mission to stabilize the nation's mortgage markets and widen opportunities for home ownership and affordable rental housing. Freddie Mac and its sister institution Fannie Mae was set up based on the idea that neither government nor private banking interests could address the nation's housing finance needs. The company's charter established a board comprising 18 members, 13 elected by the shareholders, and 5 appointed by the President of the United States. Freddie Mac is a government-sponsored enterprise that is a business entity that has a distinct relationship with the government. GSE usually enjoys special perks and privileges that other businesses do not receive. Freddie Mac, for example, is exempt from state and local tax. Neither it is subject to standard disclosure rules imposed on other financial institutions. It is rated by credit rating agencies such as Moody's. GSEs such as Freddie Mac are among the world's largest securities issuers. Freddie Mac is one of the biggest buyers of home mortgage in the US and also publicly traded company. It buys mortgage from mortgage lenders such as commercial banks and other financial institutions, repackage them as mortgage-backed and debt securities which are then purchased by investors. Mortgage-backed securities are more liquid than individual mortgage. Institutions like Freddie Mac make their profits from the difference between the cost of its debts and the return of its mortgage holding. Their role is to serve as a secondary market conduit between mortgage lenders and investors. Mortgage lenders use the proceeds from selling loans to Freddie Mac to fund new mortgage. In this way, Freddie Mac replenish and increase the supply of funds available for home buyers and apartment owners from mortgage lenders. About 50% of all new single-family home mortgages today are sold to secondary market conduits. Freddie Mac was manipulated profit. Freddie Mac has been received $2.25 billion from the US Treasury and used it selfishly. They did not pay their yearly local and state tax that added up to $10 billion. There are several people involved in this case. David Glenn, he was President and Chief Operating Officer. He was fired after the scandal. He was head of operating and overseer of all department. He paid a $250,000 for civil penalty and also in disgorgement. Leland Bransell, he was Chairman and Chief Executive Officer. He was fired after scandal. He watched over day-to-day operations. He was not charged. Vaughn Clark, he is ex-Chief Executive Officer. He paid a $125,000 for civil penalty, and also he paid $29,227 in disgorgement. Robert Dean, he was former Senior Vice President. He dealt with employees. He was fired after scandal. He paid a $65,000 in civil penalty, and he also paid $34,658 in disgorgement. Nazir Dosani, he was former Vice President. He dealt with employees. He was fired after scandal. He paid a $75,000 in civil penalty, and he also paid $61,663 in disgorgement. Next, I will continue with the chronology of Freddie Mac accounting scandal. This chronology will start from July 13 until September 7 of 2008.
July 13. After a weekend of negotiations, the Treasury and the Federal Reserve announced emergency measures to backstop Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. The two companies will get access to credit lines, including direct access to Fed money if necessary, and a provision for the Treasury to take an equity stake in the companies if required. The Securities and Exchange Commission announced measures aimed at stemming the spread of false rumors. July 15. SEC Chairman Christopher Cox says the SEC will impose an emergency measure designed to make it more cumbersome to sell short the shares of Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and 17 other major financial institutions. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac shareholders still find no overt assurance regarding the fate of common stock in any government bailout. Freddie Mac shares plunged 26% and Fannie Mae plummets 27%. July 16 to 17. Equity investors finally see some relief as the US government gains some key support for the rescue package. Short sellers begin to back off the stocks ahead of SEC's emergency short selling rules taking effect. Freddie Mac completes its second successful debt sales of the week, and confidence rises about the fate of the rescue effort moving through Congress. Fannie Mae shares rise more than 80% and Freddie Mac adds nearly 22%. July 21. Freddie Mac has another successful debt sale, though there is evidence of smaller demand than the previous big sale. The SEC's short selling restrictions take effect. Fannie Mae gains more than 5%, while Freddie Mac falls more than 4%. July 23. The House of Representatives approved a housing market support package including a mandate for the US Treasury to provide equity or debt to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. The White House drops opposition to other measures in the broad housing bill and pledged to sign it into law. Fannie Mae shares rise almost 12% to $15, their highest close since July 9. Freddie Mac closed up more than 11% at $10.80, its highest close since July 8. July 25, US Senate approved the housing market bill by a 72 to 13 vote, and it is sent to the White House to be signed into law. August 6, Freddie Mac posts a loss of $821 million or $1.63 a share for the second quarter, its fourth straight quarterly loss. Freddie Mac doubles its provisions for losses and sharply cuts its dividend. August 8, Fannie Mae posts a second quarter loss of $2.3 billion before preferred dividend payments, or $2.54 per share. It is the fourth straight quarterly loss, bringing its cumulative loss over the 12 months to $9.44 billion before preferred dividends. Fannie cuts its dividend and says it will raise loss reserve. August 12, SEC restrictions on short selling of 19 financial stocks including Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. August 17, Barron's Magazine reports the Treasury Department is increasingly likely to recapitalize Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac in coming months, using taxpayers' money. August 18, share prices for the mortgage finance companies dropped, with Fannie Mae's price plunging 22% to a 16-year low of $6.15 and Freddie Mac's down to 25% to $4.39. US Treasury says it has no plans to use its new authority to backstop Fannie and Freddie by providing equity capital or new loans. August 20, the US Treasury confirms that the officials from the department and Freddie Mac met to talk about the company's health and about how it can best weather current economic woes. August 22, Moody's Investors Risk cuts its rating on Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac preferred stocks, citing concerns that the market volatility has hurt the mortgage finance giant's ability to get fresh capital. Moody's lowered the preferred stock ratings on the companies to Baa3 from A1 and the bank financial strength rating to D+ from B-. Moody's affirmed the company's AAA senior debt ratings and the AA2 rating on their subordinate debt. August 26, Freddie Mac said its portfolio of investments in July rose to $788.2 billion from $791.8 billion in June, but its purchase and sales agreements for future months turned around abruptly from the past 5 months, falling to negative $324 million in the month from $34.7 billion in June. Fannie Mae said its mortgage investment portfolio grew 14.4% in July to $758.1 billion. Fannie Mae's contract to purchase mortgage in the future rose to $43.3 billion from $38.3 billion. Serious delinquencies on loans granted by Fannie Mae jumped to 1.36% in June from 1.30% in May, while the delinquency rate for all Freddie Mac loans rose above 1% for the first time ever, reaching 1.01% of its book of business from 0.93% points in May. August 27, Fannie Mae announced a management shakeup in an effort to come to grips with mounting credit losses and a shrinking capital base. The company's chief financial officer Stephen Swart was replaced, and the chief business officer Peter Nicholas will take on an expanded role. A new chief risk officer was also named. Daniel Mudd, the company's chief executive, will remain in place and has the confidence of the board of directors, said board chairman Stephen Ashley. September 3, Freddie Mac sold $3 billion of 2-year notes to yield 0.975 percentage point more than treasuries, up from 0.88.8's July sale of the same maturity. September 5, the US government plans to put government-sponsored mortgage finance companies Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac under federal control. The New York Times and Washington Post newspaper reported last Friday in what could be the largest financial bailout in the nation's history. The Wall Street Journal reported earlier on September 5 that the US Treasury Department is close to finalizing a plan to restructure the two companies that includes changes to their senior management. And lastly, on September 7, the US government on Sunday seized control of mortgage finance companies Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, launching what could be its biggest federal bailout ever in a bid to support the US housing market and ward off more global financial market turbulence.
Based on this scandal, there are several implications to the stakeholders, which on the auditing and accounting profession, and also to investors and creditors. For accounting and auditing profession, the implication to the selection of audit client, increasing auditing fees, regulation and provision of service by auditing fees.
Implication on the auditing and accounting profession. This scandal is one out of long list of similar scandals such as Enron and WorldCom, which collectively have damaged the reputation of the auditing profession. The outcome result in the further downfall of Andersen, where it adds the more than 100 auditing-related civil legislation pending against the firm. Selection of audit client. Subsequently, it is argued that the effect of this scandal and others prompt auditors to be more cautious in taking out risky clients. Even if the audit is carried out truthfully, auditors may be unable to identify or detect misstatements for clients with complex accounting issues such as Freddie. As a result, auditors themselves may be held liable, facing civil lawsuit, tarnishing their reputation and causing financial distress. Anderson's reputation was severely damaged by Enron and Freddie scandal, causing many companies to rethink their relationship with Anderson. Increasing auditing fees. The following scandal, auditors may decide to increase the auditing fees as insurance against riskier clients. Besides that, it is noted that audit exists because of the insurance hypothesis. This suggests that the more accounting scandals are exposed, the higher the reliance on audited financial statements by company. This then brings increased liability to audit firms, including additional work and resources to ensure a true unqualified audit, which leads to an increase in audit fees. Regulation. It is imperative that we know the criterion to judge if an auditor did a good job or not in order to assess the credibility of an audit firm as an inspector of the financial statement. Consequently, the question who controls the auditors is growing. However, it is observed that in the US, the Big Four accounting firms are now being inspected by an independent regulator to assess the quality of an audit firm. This trend may follow in other countries, especially those with serious issue of accounting scandal. Provision of service by auditing firm. Finally, accounting scandals such as Freddie highlight that audit firms should start focusing their business on just auditing. Audit firms should not offer other non-audit services such as tax or business advisory to companies that they audit. This would increase auditor credibility and independence because incentive to keep the client satisfied and retain the relationship to gain more lucrative contract in the future world would be removed. This fraud creates three problems for investor and creditor. The first consequence of the fraud is that it misleads capital provider with respect to the firm. The investment community will not think it as deserving as other organizations. The economy suffers a mislocation of resources. The second consequence of the fraud is that supply the corporate executive with incentive to engage in insider trading. The market thinks the business entity has the lower income and may bid down the stock price and the bond price. The manager who are partaking in the fraud know that the earning stream is actually higher, can profit from this knowledge illegally. The third consequence is that the market may estimate the risk of corporation, and in this case, that seems to provide the motivation for accounting fraud. Corporate managers want to portray a picture of a steady, reliable company that was even growing in resources and income. That picture was phony inasmuch as the true income stream is far more volatile than the reported earnings would indicate.
The lesson learned from Freddie Mac accounting scandal are: firstly, Freddie Mac reported its revised earnings by disclosing that they had understated net income by nearly $5 billion over more than 3 years. Many of the transactions that were accounted for improperly, including swaps and reserve for loan losers, were described in a preliminary report to the board by an outside law firm and in a supplementary report released with the restatement. From this, we can learn that firms need to avoid thinly veiled scandal with transparency.
The second lesson learned is about GSE model. At that time, the most persistent criticism for the GSE model used by Freddie Mac is the moral hazard that arises from the government's implicit guarantee. Since the guarantee is provided for free of charge and presumed to apply to GSE securities and corporate debt, critics have long maintained that Freddie Mac took on excessive risk in order to maximize shareholder profits and executive compensation, with federal taxpayers left holding the bag. This privatization of profits and socialization of risk has become a rallying cry for many GSE detractors. In fact, many believe that the moral hazard inherent in the GSE approach was the primary driver behind their demise. The GSE model is clearly not working and reform is needed.
From all the information we share, we could say that Freddie Mac lacked of internal control. The weaknesses in the accounting personnel and expertise of Freddie Mac extend to the CFO and the controller. The former CFO, John Gibbons, who departed in March 2000, lacked adequate skill for the position. Nonetheless, the senior management replaced Mr. Gibbons with Von Clark, who had even fewer skill. Thus, Freddie Mac must defining the right selection criteria to their leader.